Hi, my name is Dana Horowitz, and this is my video interview for the Rural School Leadership Academy. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to start off with question number one, which is many career possibilities are available to you. Why do you want to be leading others in a school? Uh, Great question. Also, thank you for the compliment. I suppose there are tons of other things that I could be doing, but ever since I found my way to education, nothing else has really felt that compelling. Um, Education has always been a huge part of my life, and I think that ultimately I was always going to end up in something where I was going to be a lifelong learner. That was the only type of career that was going to interest me. Um, and I was on my way to do that. I was living in France, in Paris, and I was learning French in order to apply to post colonial literature programs and comparative literature departments, which was very exciting and stimulating to me. But the year that I was there, that January, the Charlie Hebdo tragedies occurred when two men came into the office of a satirical newspaper and murdered innocent civilians. It really stirred the entire city and the entire country and even people across the world. But for me, it really spoke, the way that I responded spoke to where I was as a person, because all I could think was, this is tragic. But more specifically, there's a tragedy happening on the part of the state of France that they did not provide these young men with access to an education that could have taught them the appropriate way to interpret this information, and then more importantly, the appropriate way to respond when we have that difference of opinion. And I just couldn't think of anything that could be more fundamentally important to a young person's growth in their relationship with their country, especially this place that's supposed to be this, liberal mecca, for lack of a better word. And yet here we were amidst this real violent hatred. And it was upsetting. And I just, in that moment, realized that I could not live in my little academia ivory tower and talk about literature and the people that it represented completely separate from the people who lived it and wrote it and experienced it. And I really wanted to be boots on the ground, involved with helping people find their voice through their learning and helping people understand other people's voices through their learning. And that's how I found my way into education. That doesn't fully answer why I wanted to be a leader in a school. That did not come until I was actually in a school. All of those themes that I've expressed about the importance of empathy and the importance of being able to understand and the importance of being able to respond in a measured and compassionate and confident way are all very important to me. But what I started to see in terms of my impact, and is actually in my school, is that my impact comes through my engagement with my coworkers. And that my students, I was in a weird position where I was put in all pre-AP classes my first year. But most of the students in those classes, they have their people. They have people who put them in these classes, whether it's their parents or their grandparents or older siblings or coaches, people who are looking out for them. Which meant that a lot more of my relationship building my first year in a rural school had to do with my relationships with my coworkers and sharing my ideas and my experiences and my priorities for these students in terms of what had brought me success and what I believed in my heart of hearts would bring them success. And seeing the ripple effect of having faith in our students and faith in their abilities and just holding fast to the belief that they could accomplish anything, that their voices and opinions mattered, has been incredible. And not only has it gone to our other teachers in terms of how we're treating our students and how we're showing our love to our students, but it has even gone to our principal and to our district-wide administration in terms of investing money in ways that show that we support our students, not just as, pockets of money that come into our district, but as vessels of knowledge who are going to bring skills and tools into our district and then take that knowledge out into the world. And seeing that relationship and seeing that shift in understanding of what our students are capable of has been incredible. I've loved every second of it, and there is not a day that goes by that I don't learn something from my students or my coworkers, and that they're not learning something from me. So that constant exchange, I think, is only improved when you're a leader. The ability to just exchange with so many more people on a daily basis is something that really excites me and something that I'm definitely interested in down the road. Right now, I have a mid-level position as our department chair for the English department, which is really wonderful and exciting, and it's allowing me to do a little bit of both, to cooperate with other departments, but also to stay really focused on our individual students, which has been particularly wonderful, and I love a whole lot. The second question, you can develop yourself as a school leader anywhere. Why do you have a particular passion to read and lead in a rural region? So the cat's out of the bag. I lived in Paris for a year, which is very much not America, and is very much not rural, quite urban, quite European. So I really am the ultimate outsider. I have lived in New Jersey, and I've lived in California, and I lived in densely populated places, and it was a really wonderful, happy accident that I ended up in Arkansas, in Stuttgart, in this very rural place. I was completely unprepared. But I think there's an Italo Calvino quote that is something to the effect of, I am most comfortable where it is most natural for me to be an outsider. And I think that that's something that's true of me as well, because when you're an outsider and when you don't have the upper hand, when you don't have the privileges that accompany having a community built in, having people that you know, having an awareness of how things work, you are automatically a student again. You're a learner. You have to put yourself in the hands of other people. You have to trust other people. You have to build relationships. You have to build understanding, and you have to really seek to understand. And I love learning. I love asking the questions, and I love discovering the answers, and I love finding better questions, and I love finding people to work with and finding new ideas that excite me. Those are all things that bring me genuine joy. And being able to model that joy for my students and show them what is so wonderful about their town, and show them what is so exciting to me, and showing them that even though I may have visited all these countries or been to all of these places or had all these different experiences, that their lives are exciting and thrilling to me, I think is a gift that I get to give to them. But it's not just like fetishizing their experience, it's showing them and honoring them, their experiences, and how they deserve just as much attention and just as much appreciation as what has become like mainstream media, what they're not used to seeing. They're not used to seeing their lives reflected in TV shows or in movies or in magazines, and getting to show them that their lives are worthy of that reflection is very exciting. The other piece of like being a lifelong learner and showing them how interested I am is modeling for them what it looks like to look at the world and not just see people who are different from me, but to see what is similar, and also to appreciate those differences. The way that my students are able to engage with ideas that they have come into no human contact with is thrilling and encouraging, and makes me feel better about being a citizen of the United States, and it makes me feel better about the future. I'm thinking of a conversation that my students had early last week when we were looking at silence, and we were looking at Clint Smith's The Danger of Silence, which is a spoken word poem by a teacher in New Orleans, and Rabbi Prince's speech that was given at the Civil Rights March in 1963, just before Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. And our discussion after comparing those two men's ideas of silence and what that means, there was no like, oh, these men are so different. There's this Jewish guy and there's this black guy, when most of my students are white, and there's no tokenizing of their identities. It's simply a treatment of their ideas. And my students are so quick and so willing and so able and ready to take ideas that apply to so much of the world and bring them into their lives and their town and see what they mean. And then, particularly impressively, they are willing and able to look back at the world and see what needs to be different and see what needs to change. And, the natural progression from that is we're having conversations in class and seminars about, okay, so how do we speak out? How do we not be silent? What do we do when someone doesn't listen to us? And it's encouraging us to have really critical conversations that, being in a polite southern town, we're sometimes trained to not have. So the opportunities that I get to push back on what my students sometimes think of as the right way of doing things, but also giving them the tools and the safe space to make progress and to push themselves is so wonderful. And I know that it could exist in any place, in any region, in any part of America, but it feels particularly special and particularly important in a rural region. Question number 3. If I could talk to your current principal, the janitor at your school, a colleague in your department, and a student's family, and ask them to describe you in one word, what words would they use and why? How accurate do you think these words are? Okay, so I think that my principal would describe me as reflective. Principal Hawkins is a great guy. He was the basketball coach in our district for a really long time and took the position of principal at the junior high 2 years ago. So 1 year before I started there. And every time we have a debrief, every time we have a conversation, every time we're talking about a student or a parent or a structure, I think that I come with a lot of ideas and I come with a lot of reasons for my ideas and a lot of background knowledge. And I think that's something that he appreciates, but it also it pushes him to think a little bit more deeply sometimes about the questions that we're asking ourselves and how it's going to apply to our students and to our staff. I think that my janitor, Jorge, would describe me as diligent. Listen, Jorge comes in almost every day, and whether it's sweeping or mopping or waxing or wiping off the desks, I am still there, and he's just trying to get his work done, and I am in the way prepping for the next day when it feels like everyone else has gone home. So maybe he would actually just describe me as inconvenient, but or just in the way, but I think that's Jorge's general impression. My coworkers in my department, I think, would describe me as dedicated. I come early, I stay late, but more than that, this year I've had the privilege of starting to lead our PLCs, or professional learning communities, and I think that what the bar that I'm holding us to in the English department shows just how passionate I am about what we're doing, and how hard I'm willing to work in order to get our students where we think that they should be. And I think that my students' families would probably describe me as engaged. They see my car at the school long after the other cars have gone. They see me at basketball games and at football games, and they see me at spelling bees, and they see me at pageants, and I just try to get as involved as I can and to support them as much as I can outside of school, because they do so much and they trust me so much inside of school. So I fully recognize that my students are full people, and my 1 hour with them 5 days a week is a very small part of who they are, but that I hope the ideas that we discuss carry out, which is why I feel like my relationship with them should carry outside of school as well. I think that I agree with all those words. I don't know that any one of them is a word that I would use to describe myself if you gave me one word, but I think that put together they start to paint a pretty clear picture of who I am as a teacher, which is mostly an amplified version of what I am as a person, which is a really excited student who is ready and willing to learn. Thank you so much for taking your time to watch this video and for giving me this opportunity to apply to RSLA and to reflect on my experiences in rural teaching so far. It's really been a treat. So enjoy the rest of your review process and have a great day. Bye.